Bom, vamos começar com uma pergunta provocativa e bem-humorada da plateia. Se os austríacos conseguem prever melhor os ciclos econômicos, por que não trabalham no mercado financeiro e ficam milionários?
Well, we actually don't place a lot of emphasis on prediction. We're typically only good at predicting the major swings, the major crises in the economy. We don't really do a lot of short-term forecasting and things like that. We don't see that as our role. We're in the business here of trying to teach people about how the world works, not necessarily to make money. With that said, there are plenty of people in financial markets who have studied Austrian economics and plenty of people who are Austrian economists who have gone into financial markets and have made millions of dollars. So it's certainly an avenue that people have done in terms of being an Austrian economist, going into financial markets and making money, or people in financial markets finding out that Austrian theory is helpful in some respects, not in all. We're not good market timers, for example, necessarily, and made a lot of money. It's just not what a lot of Austrians do.
Uhum. O Alfredo Perenzer tem uma pergunta da plateia. Está com o microfone?
Okay, is it possible to talk in English? Okay. Okay. First of all, I would like to congratulate your speech today. But see, my question is in this way: how do you think is important the pure rate of interest in a country like Brazil, with a history of high inflation, high operational cost in business, in banks administration, and the high risk in business loan? I ask you again, don't you think in this way it would be better to follow Mr. Friedman advice? Friedman father, David is here? No. Yeah. Freedom advice that he says, forget interest rate, just keep attention on the variation of money stock. That's it. Thank you.
Well, they've tried that, and actually Mises's analysis of Fisher was precisely that: is that if you have a government agency, bureaucracy that is trying to follow some rule in terms of increases in the money supply or the value of the dollar, it doesn't matter what the rule is. The rule is going to distort what the market would otherwise seek to have in terms of the money supply and the interest rate and things of that nature. The Friedman approach would seem to have some benefits over the actual approach that's taken. And his students have had an influence in South American monetary policy and have had very limited success because the rule-following approach can still lead to cycles, and of course the political influence that overrides the rule-following capacity. So it breaks down for theoretical reasons, and it will break down for political reasons. And what you need is a system where the money is not in the hands of the government, where they cannot control it. That's why you want a physical silver money monetary system which the government doesn't have any influence over at all. The fact that government has influence over your money and over your interest rate is what's made inflation and the problems of banking and the problems of not being able to get private credit so pervasive, particularly in South America. So it's a very unstable stopgap measure that really has not worked. It's been tried, in other words, and it has broken down and failed. In a textbook way, it still has problems, though.
Próxima pergunta. Se o intervencionismo prevaleceu desde os anos 20 nos Estados Unidos, como a economia americana conseguiu se safar, se livrar ou evitar a stagflation, que seria a estagnação mais inflação no país? If interventionism prevailed in the 20s, how, sorry, em português, se o intervencionismo prevaleceu nos anos 20, como a economia americana conseguiu se safar da stagflation?
During the 1920s?
Yes. Since the 1920s.
Oh, since the 1920s. Well, we've had a lot of economic problems in the United States and elsewhere since the 1920s. And, of course, the central banks are all coming online, either ours in 1913 and other countries earlier or slightly later. But we've had plenty of economic problems since the adoption of the central banking systems. We've had, periodic crises. And when they try to fight the regular business cycle, it builds up into a super cycle when you get a long, sustained period of stagflation, high unemployment, and high inflation. So, we've had this cycle throughout the 20th century of boom and bust. Basically, it hasn't gone away. It gets suspended for short periods of time, but we haven't avoided it.
Ok, Mark. Os críticos da escola austríaca dizem que os economistas da escola são profetas do apocalipse. How do you respond to that? Como você responderia aos críticos?
That we're prophets of the apocalypse. Well, actually, I think most of us. Sorry about that. You're getting me back. Actually, I think most of us are very much optimists in the long run. The way I view the world is I've seen tremendous improvement in our standards of living and in our understanding of economics over, say, the last 25 to 30 years. There's been a tremendous improvement. The Austrian school was all but dead 25 years ago. Okay, this first row of people would be it. That would be the Austrian school. And we've come a long way since then. The world has improved. Technology and the economy has expanded. But we do have a very important, critical problem, the existence of a paper monetary system, a fiat monetary system based on central banking, and we can wake up and change that system, but if we don't, yes, we are going to have a sort of a monetary type of an apocalyptic conditions if and when we don't actually do something to solve it in a rational way. So we're long-term optimists. We can fix the problem. We know what the solution is. But if we don't, the end game is a hyperinflation and a very destructive event on society.
Pode fazer a pergunta da plateia.
Como o senhor vê as críticas do economista Brian Kaplan sobre a teoria dos ciclos econômicos austríacos? Eu pergunto do Brian Kaplan porque é normal ver outros economistas de outras linhas se converterem à economia austríaca, mas ele é o único que eu conheço que é um ex-austríaco. E ele usa toda a bibliografia austríaca para criticar os ciclos econômicos. Como o senhor, tem alguma coisa que se aproveita da crítica dele?
No. In the paper, I think I indicated how much I think of his view of the Austrian business cycle. I mean, I think he's got egg all over his face, and he's going to be if he cares anything about his reputation, he should start trying to rebuild it. I don't know why he's a deviationist, except for the fact that he seems to enjoy just deviating from the rest of us on things and doing quirky little things. And so I don't really, I really haven't bothered to remember all that much about his book.
Ok, tem mais uma pergunta aqui. Mark, quais são os erros do governo americano em lidar com a atual crise? Depois que a bolha estourou, depois que a crise começou, haveria outra solução que não a intervenção? Outra solução diferente da intervenção do governo?
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, I mean, when you know something's coming, like, you had the skyscraper signal and the housing market signal, and you're just sort of waiting for things to happen. What we were looking at and seeing the correction process taking place, the mortgage companies, they were all going under, and the home construction people were cutting back, and there were all sorts of adjustments that were taking place in terms of correcting for that bust. It was already happening. It was already in process, and then all of a sudden, Bernanke went crazy in January of 2008, I guess it was, with all these incredibly, not just cutting interest rates, but the TARP program and all these other programs, massive interventions, unprecedented interventions, which are only going to serve to lengthen and worsen this whole crisis. If they had just allowed things to fall into place, a lot of good things would have happened. For example, Freddie Mae and Fannie Mac, or whatever they are, Fannie and Freddie would have gone under. But that's what economists have been hoping for years. I mean, I remember as an undergraduate having my left-wing econ professor saying that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they have an unfair advantage. They're an artificial creation of government, and they shouldn't exist. And this was from a left-wing econ professor. And so we've always wanted to get rid of them, and this would have been a great time to do it. And so a lot of things that would have taken place are really good things. I mean, we would have eliminated some of these crazy financial instruments permanently. We would have, brought a lot more disgrace to these public officials that created all these problems. So the normal market correction process was well underway, and it was going to eliminate some things that needed to be eliminated. And unfortunately, we're propped up, subsidized, and bailed out at the expense of the American taxpayer and the future of American economic growth.
Mais uma pergunta da plateia.